What's going on, folks? This is Price is Wrong, and today I'm making this video. I want to talk about building a gaming PC and full on versus a budget. I had a conversation recently with a relative, and the topic, of course, was building a gaming PC. And person I was speaking with just happened to be a single mom, but she's wanting to do right by her kids. So I'm just kind of, creating this video with all that in mind. So anyway, without further ado, let me go ahead and I'm going to run my intro and I'm going to get into it. So stay tuned.
Welcome to Battle Vortex.
All right, folks. So building a gaming PC, full on versus on a budget. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Make sure you click the bell next to the subscribe button. I'd appreciate that very much. And then I'm actually planning on doing a series where I'm going to talk about streaming and other technical stuff too. So not just a lot of folks know me from video games, but doing video games. But I'm going to try to do a little bit more than that and come out with a little series of videos. So if you're interested, like I said, hit the subscribe button and hit that little bell next to it. I'd appreciate it very much. So, let's see here. First thing I want to talk about is the date. It's currently July 2018 when I'm making this video. I'm pointing that out because on YouTube, things can kind of get lost. And, somebody might, 5 years from now, looking at this video, and a lot of the stuff that I'm covering might not apply in 5 years. So, I do want to point out that I am not a professional builder. I'm knowledgeable. I bought my first PC back in '95. I had experience with PCs before then. I have built several computers since then of my own, and but ultimately, when it comes right down to it, anything that you do, any choices you make, that's on you. That's your responsibility. I am not going to be held accountable for that. So. And your actions. I'm going to give you as much advice as I can, but yeah, don't point your finger back at me if you have any kind of hiccups, please. Anyway, but technology does change fast, so that's another thing to keep in mind. So even 6 months from now, I mean, something could come out that I'm not even totally aware of. So, but anyway, let's move forward. So things we're going to discuss about PCs are the processor, memory, graphics, cooling, hard drives, peripherals, and also want to talk about networks. I think I got a little bonus slide in there too that I'm going to bring up. So, but anyway, let's just start pushing through. So, processor is commonly referred to as a CPU or central processing unit. If you like to know what acronyms stand for, I'm one of those. I know a lot of people. The first question when it comes to processors is Intel or AMD. Personally, I always recommend Intel, and the reason for that is basically it's the way that they advertise their product. Intel, when they clock their CPUs, it's the testing they do on there that I kind of feel like it's a good amount of horsepower for what you're asking it to do, right? So I feel like it's a good amount of horsepower. AMD is not quite so much because the attributes that they sell you tend to be overclocked, okay? That just means that you're pushing the hardware harder than you should be. And so AMD is notorious for heat issues, short lives. A lot of people like the overclocking thing. I'm not a big fan of overclocking because, basically, if you're somebody who lives on a budget, like myself, I'm not wealthy. I don't have throwaway money, a couple $1,000s here or there for a new computer if something burns up. I expect my stuff to last for a little bit longer than 2 years. So I don't do any kind of overclocking myself, and I wouldn't recommend anybody else do it either. Now, if you're going to be building a full-on gaming PC, some of the Intel standards, they actually do make a whole bunch of different processors. They got like the Atom and this, that, and the other for, as far as a budget. Well, Atom is generally for smaller devices like tablets and that kind of thing. The i-series are pretty much what you're going to want for a PC, for a computer for your home, whether it be a laptop or a desktop PC. And I definitely recommend a desktop unless you have a need to be mobile, which then, of course, you'd want a laptop. Laptops, they don't have as much, the cooling in there is not as good as a desktop PC. It just doesn't have the airflow. And, and it's not it's not expandable. Well, as expandable. You can't actually get like RAM added. You can get your hard drive upgraded. And I think there's even laptops out there that can support multiple hard drives. But if you're gaming, I know personally I don't go anywhere gaming. I game at home. I got a desktop PC. It's just what I prefer. And it's definitely what I recommend. So a desktop PC over a laptop for me is an easy question. Now, like I said, if you have a need to be mobile, or if you plan on using it for mobile things, like maybe your kid's a student or is going to college and will need a laptop at school, and you don't, then you might want to get them a laptop. But so desktop versus PC, like I said, definitely desktop. Processor, Intel is my recommendation. I'd avoid anything to do with AMD. That's me personally. I know there's a lot of people out there that are really hardcore about AMD. They do have like gaming marketing out there, and I think a lot of people are all over it, but to me it's still an AMD product. I don't like their testing. I don't like that they sell stuff overclocked. Now, as far as Intel options, what I would recommend is a minimum. I'd recommend an i7, and if you're have the money, you can even possibly go i9. As far as the processors go. Right now, I think currently we're in the 8th generation as far as the new technology that's out, 8th generation i7s. If you're going to be on a budget, you could go as low as an i5. I would definitely avoid an i3, though, if you plan on using your computer for any kind of gaming. i5 or better, preferably i7. Okay, i7 is what I have. Of course, I'm not 8th generation, but I've had mine now for, it's almost coming up on 2 years, my gaming computer. But anyway, if you've never built a computer before and you're actually building this yourself, things you're going to want to pay attention to, you're going to want to pay attention to the socket type. Okay, so basically that's how the interface, the chip, the CPU, the actual chip interfaces with the motherboard. Socket is going to be really important, is because obviously you want to make sure that the pins match. You got to have the holes in the right places for the pins on the CPU. So socket type's really important. That's the first thing that'll get you. If you're interested in other stuff like core count, for example, the more cores, the better. I think most processors these days are about 4 cores. The more advanced ones can be 6 cores. The faster ones will have 6 cores. That's basically it's like when it says cores, each core is actually its own CPU. So if you have something that's got 4 cores, that's basically like having 4 CPUs in there. And clock speed is usually is actually, it can be kind of important, okay, but that's not the main thing you want to look out for, because you can have something that is 4 cores outperform something that's 6 cores, if the depending on the clock speed, I guess. But I guess the core count's more important, I think. Clock speed would be second. Cache, that's something else you might be interested in. The cache that's on the CPU, that's basically just storage. It's basically the CPU has its own memory, and that's what the cache is for. So the more of that you have, the better. There's going to be a lot less going in and out, and it's really good for for bottlenecks and all that. Hopefully you won't have any bottlenecks, but if you do have any kind of bottlenecks going to your CPU, and that's basically just more data going in that's going out type of stuff, like it's coming in quicker than it can be processed, that's basically what your cache is for. So the more of that, the better, but hopefully you don't really need it. But anyway, let's move on. The next thing I'm going to talk about is memory. Every computer, for a gaming computer, I would recommend for a full-on 16 gigabits of RAM. Okay, you can probably get by with 8 these days. You can get by with 8, but I would definitely recommend 16 if at all possible. But 8 gigs is not a bad start. That will play pretty much most games. I don't think there's any games that actually require 16 gigs yet. I could be wrong on that because I haven't played every game. If you're a first-time builder and you're kind of curious as to what you need to look for when selecting your memory, You need to look at the pin count. The pin count on the RAM, the sticks of RAM, actually need to match the pin count that's on your motherboard. Okay, so it's easy to buy RAM that doesn't fit. Okay, real easy, because there's a lot of options out there for memory. Things that you might be concerned with would be a speed or latency of each stick of RAM. Everything's measured, and well, it's generally measured, and that's how they're valued, is via speed and latency, not just the actual memory itself. You can buy, if you're going to buy multiple sticks, you can get matched pairs, just because, and that's generally what you want to do. If you're for 16 gig, for example, you might want to get 2 8 gig sticks, but you don't want to just buy them separately. You want to get them both at the same time and a matched pair set. That way, you know, the handoff or between them works out more evenly. Okay, it works out more evenly, and so that's definitely, you don't want to mess with memory too much. These are things that are really critical to the performance of your machine. So graphics, most motherboards these days do come with onboard graphics, and what I would recommend, there's certain brands to look out for. Okay, I really recommend, as far as graphics, that you get something with an NVIDIA chipset. Okay, NVIDIA is a well-known, well-respected brand in the gaming community. I know ATI has got some respect too, but I'm not going to lie. I used to support them, but after AMD bought them, I kind of stay away, because now AMD's making all their processors. It just makes me not trust them anymore. So I'm strictly NVIDIA now. I don't know if that really makes me a fanboy. I hope not. I'd like to think I'm still open-minded, but I just don't have any kind of trust at all for AMD. Now, if you're able to spend some money on your gaming PC, you definitely want to get a separate graphics card. You want to get a separate graphics card that will fit into a PCIe slot on your, I believe that's what it's called, on your motherboard. And so it's kind of, it's a standalone graphics card. It's not something that's built onto, it's not integrated, okay, onto the motherboard. So if you're going to go full on, that's definitely what I recommend. I think the best out right now is NVIDIA, the 1080 GT. I have a 1070 GTX, and I tend to go like one under whatever the best is whenever I'm getting a new machine. I find out what the best is, and I go one down. And the reason why I do that is because you can save hundreds of dollars that way. If you're on a budget, you can get by with the onboard graphics card generally. I wouldn't push it too hard. And I would definitely make sure it said NVIDIA. You had NVIDIA chipsets. You can get a lot of other onboard graphic cards, and but they're not really all that great for gaming. I mean, you're still going to see like your games and all that stuff, but stuff like shadows and a lot of other elements of the games that you may be playing, your computer might not be able to render, so you won't see them. So I would definitely recommend you know, decent graphics for your computer. If you are building one on your own for your first time, things you might want to look at is might want to check your motherboard, make sure you have. Sometimes you can actually have like 2 graphic cards, and you can have them linked. So if you're doing something like that, you want to make sure you have the right number of slots. So if you're planning on doing stacking 2 graphics cards, then you got to have at least 2 of the PCI Express slots, right? And the slot type. So you want to make sure it is PCI Express. The slot type may change. I mean, you know, these things do happen. And once upon a time, we used AGP. That was the best. And it is since technology advances and all that kind of stuff. We're up to PCI Express now. So, but anyway, also you want to make sure you have the right amount of power that you need for your graphics card. So if you're getting a secondary graphics card or standalone graphics, I guess. I'm trying to think of the best terminology. You're going to have different kind of power requirements. Some require a 4-pin power. Some might require 6-pin power. Some might require 2 4-pins or 2 6-pins. So the power supply, you want to make sure you have all of that in your power supply. You got to have, so the power supply for your computer is going to determine what your capacity is, what your potential is. So that's something else you might want to think about when if you're building your own computer. You know, make sure you know what the power is, the power ports are on the graphics cards, and then make sure you know what the power supply has available. A lot of power supplies have modular cabling too, so you can just pick and choose what you want attached to it. So, and I'd actually recommend that, to be honest, if you can do that. And the reason being is because all that cabling can get in the way and can interfere with your airflow. Cooling, just talking about airflow. There are a couple options for cooling your computer. You know, basically anything that uses power generates heat, and heat can be bad for your machine, and could be bad for your investment. And your computer is an investment. I mean, when you're spending a couple of $1,000s, you expect to get a few years out of it. But anyway, your options are air cooling and water cooling. So air is standard. Okay, I use air myself. I've never used anything but air. I've never used any kind of water cooling. So I'm not really an expert when it comes to water cooling. I will say the lessons I've learned with air cooling. Obviously, you know, if you're going to put any kind of extra equipment in your PC, standard heatsink that comes with your CPU might not be good enough. You might want to upgrade that. You want to get something a little bigger, maybe something that pushed air across the, you know, the metal in the back, that kind of thing, and just to help push the hot air out. So that might be a good idea. If you can get some extra fans, basically you want the air blowing in from the front and going out the back. That's typically what's done. If you have a case that has fans on the top, you want that blowing in and everything going out the back. And the reason for that is that it helps control the flow of air to make sure the air is being moved out, the hot air is being moved out of your case as efficiently as possible. And so everything's supposed to go out the back. Just remember that. All the bad air goes out the back. If you are going to be doing water cooling, you want to kind of keep in mind that is a lot of parts to water cooling. So you have your radiator, you have your pump, tubing, seals, and coolant. I know, to me, I always felt like water cooling was just the craziest thing in the world, right? Because you know, you don't want to put any kind of risk any leaks inside your computer, because then you can have like short circuits and all that kind of stuff. And but they actually have, I guess there's certain types of water out there that are non-conductive that you can use, and so it kind of makes it less risky. But if you do have a leak, I mean, it's still going to be messy. So that's just not anything I've ever done. I don't overclock, so if you're not an overclocker, you really probably don't need the extra cooling from water that you would get from water cooling. Air cooling would probably work for you. And so that's another reason I don't overclock, is because air cooling is what I trust. And hard drives. Hard drives is going to be another question. So with hard drives, you do have two different kinds of hard drives out these days. There's mechanical drives, which have been around forever, and there's also solid state drives. There's actually different kinds of solid state drives too. So there's some that will actually plug directly into your motherboard. There's some that actually requires wiring back to a connector on your motherboard. Mechanical drives also require cabling that goes back to a connector on your motherboard. There are different kinds of cables. Old school is IDE. I would definitely stay away from that. You want to adopt as much modern technology as possible. So SATA, S-A-T-A, would definitely be the way to go. That's serial ATA. I don't remember what ATA stands for, to be honest, but I know that S is serial. And there's also different kinds of power cabling. So I know in the past we've always used 4-pin Molex connectors, but I think that's actually changed too in the last couple of years, if I'm not mistaken. So that's definitely something you want to follow up on. Now, if you're going to build a full-on gaming machine, you probably want to have one hard drive of each, a mechanical drive and a solid-state drive. The mechanical drive would generally be used for storage. and that would be like a secondary drive. The solid state drive would make that, I would recommend that be your primary drive. And the reason for that is the solid state drive doesn't have any kind of moving parts in it, and the read-write access is like super fast. And basically, if your operating system is on that, it'll boot up, and I mean, you can have your computer fully booted in less than 30 seconds. If you have a mechanical drive as your primary, it's going to take you a few minutes. So there's a big difference in boot time. There's also a lot of benefits too from running a multiple drive, having a solid state for your primary and the mechanical for your secondary. So that having the mechanical for your storage, you know, I mean, you can have a lot of space on there. I know if you're running your operating system, Windows 10 or better on solid state drive, they actually have a reset option on there. In there, if you have any kind of like serious computer problems, you can just factory reset your computer, and that will just do the solid state drive and leave your mechanical drive alone. So any kind of documents, you can actually have all of your libraries, pictures, music, and my documents, all that kind of stuff on your mechanical drive. So you don't have to worry about losing any of that. Now, as far as sizes go, a lot of people will get like a 500 gig solid state drive and maybe 2 or 4 terabyte mechanical drive for storage. Some games can be quite large these days, and so I would definitely recommend getting at least a 2 terabyte mechanical drive. But a solid state drive for your operating system, you could probably get away with the 250, and you might even be able to push it even smaller. Well, you know, maybe like even 100 gig or 150 gig solid state drive for your primary drive or your C drive. So yeah. So I think that pretty much covers hard drives. Peripherals. Now, what a peripheral is pretty much anything that connects directly to your computer, okay, that you interact with. So your mouse, your keyboard would be considered peripheral. They're like edge devices. So I guess peripheral vision is your edge of your vision. So peripheral devices are like the edge of your computer. That could be your monitor. I'm interacting with it by looking at it. Camera is looking at me. That'd be a peripheral. My microphone's a peripheral. My keyboard, my mouse. But for a gaming PC, the three main peripherals you're going to be interested in is your keyboard, mouse, and monitor. Now, with keyboards, you do have some different options. You have mechanical keyboards out there. Gaming keyboards are typically mechanical keyboards. A lot of people like that because it's got a clicky sound, and well, that's not what's attractive about it. But it's a lot of times when you have the non-mechanical keyboards, they have like a membrane in there, like a rubber membrane, and you don't always get that confident feeling that you push the button. It's not always like super responsive. With mechanical keyboards, you don't really have that issue. You know, when you hear that click, you know you know, if when you hit the space bar, you know that actually made it all the way back to your computer. So you don't feel like you have to constantly tap the buttons and all that to you know, commit your action or whatever. So mechanical keyboards for gaming keyboards are pretty standard. I would definitely recommend getting wired over wireless, and we'll talk about wired and wireless in a minute. With the mouse, other things that you can get with your keyboard too, and even a gaming mouse if you wanted to get a gaming mouse, and that's macros. So some macros are basically it's a button, a single button that doesn't have any of its own assignment. You can basically program a series of events into a single button push. That's what a macro is. So it's like you know, if you're playing a game and you have to select a few different things, you can actually say one down, one up. Just saying one is assigned to a ship. 2 is a ship, 3 is a ship. So you can do 1 up, 1 down, 2 down, 2 up, etc. You can click all of that in there and assign that to one button. So instead of having to like go through and select 5 different ships, you can just hit one button on your macro, one macro button, and it will select all 5 ships through. It'll cycle through all of that for you. So you can actually program a series of events into a single macro. And they do have that for keyboards and for mice. When you're picking out your mice, the main thing your mouse, when you're picking out your mouse, the main thing you're probably going to be looking for is DPI. DPI is an acronym that's short for dots per inch. Okay, so the higher that number, that's the higher the number, that's the faster the mouse moves. You know, with little action from yourself. So you can, if you move your mouse an inch, it could either move 100 pixels across the screen, or you can have it set to move 800 pixels across the screen. So basically, it can move a lot faster. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that is bad. So generally, you want to have a mouse that is adjustable, has an adjustable DPI, easily adjustable DPI. So you can decide when you want it to have a high DPI or a low DPI. Now, I use a wireless mouse myself, and this, in my opinion, is the best mouse on the planet. It's the Logitech MX Master. I think it's great. It's got the little texture right here, but it's got like the sideways scroll. It's got the up and down scroll, and it's got the forward and back buttons, and even the mouse. Here it's got like there's you can kind of feel the clicks when it scrolls. So, but anyway, I like it. It's a Logitech MX Master. It's my favorite mouse. I've had gaming mice, but I still prefer this one. I've actually have two keyboards. I actually have a gaming keyboard, and I have what I think is the best keyboard on the planet too, which is also a Logitech. I guess quite honestly, my gaming computer is also a Logitech. But this one right here, I think, is pretty awesome. I'm trying to remember what it's called. I know it's not called a K800. Maybe it is. I don't know. It's made in China, but it's an awesome keyboard. I think it's probably the best keyboard that Logitech has made. But I do have a Logitech G910 for my gaming keyboard, so I have one of each, and I use them both. Now, when you're shopping for a monitor, the things you're going to look for most likely are going to be resolution and refresh rate. So resolution, generally, you know, if you have HD, that could be 720p, that's going to be how many pixels your monitor, the screen displays from top to bottom. That's going to be 720 lines of resolution. When it's 1080 HD, that's going to be 1080 pixels from top to bottom. And that's basically how that works. Now, if you have a bigger screen, it's bigger pixels. And but they actually have monitors in 4K. And I mean, they get like super small. And I don't know that. My son plays on 4K. I actually still play on 1080 myself. And I don't mind it. Of course, I've never played on 4K, so I guess I really don't know what I'm missing. But, you know, obviously the more pixels that your monitor's capable of, the more it's going to cost. Another thing that's going to drive that cost up is the refresh rate. So standard monitor is going to have a 5 millisecond refresh rate, which is not a super duper big deal. But if you're playing a video game that requires timing, requires timing, or, you know, there's basically, it's going to be a latency between what's on the screen and what's going on in your brain and your eyes and all that kind of stuff. So if you can get a 1 millisecond refresh rate, that's gaming quality, and you are going to pay extra for that. So just keep that in mind. I do have, my main monitor is a gaming monitor, and it's 27 inches. You don't have to have 27 inches. I just like it. I have a second monitor on my desk that is not a gaming monitor. It's 24 inches, and that's basically the one that I use most of the time. My gaming monitor is really just for my games, but that's what I do. Now, some other things if you're a first-time builder that I didn't really intend to cover, and that was motherboards. You know, if you're picking out a motherboard, you definitely want to make sure it'll support the components that you want. And you might want to expand in the future, you know. So maybe you don't have enough money to get a couple of GPUs right away, you know. So you're going to just live with your onboard video, but you want to expand later, you know. So you want to make sure you have the slots on your motherboard, so you don't have to go out and buy a whole new motherboard when it's time to upgrade. And if you are building a computer for the first time, ESD, that's electrical static discharge, that is real, okay? It's not something I would play around with. So basically, you want to make sure that you're grounded at all times while you're working on your computer, and maybe even make sure your computer itself is grounded, okay? I wouldn't play around with that too much. So, you know, it's easy to pick up static on your body. I know sometimes it's fun to go around and shock somebody, you know, touch them with your finger after dragging your feet across the carpet. But, yeah, you don't want to do that to your computer because the stuff on computers these days is so small, it doesn't take much to blow them up. And you might not even recognize that you blew something up right away. It's just your computer will just start acting weird, and you'll be wondering why, you know. Nothing will be obvious. Troubleshooting computers can be really tough, a real big pain. So if you can eliminate ESD as a potential, you know, issue, I would do that. So I don't even play. Networks. Now, I'm kind of done with the computer part. The network, you know, that's just kind of like an extra level, okay? Because I know a lot of us play video games on the internet these days. And MMOs are massive multiplayer online. I think that's what MMO stands for. So, so most of us do have our gaming computers hooked up to a network. We're not just hooked up like to a console like we used to be back in the day. Wired, you do have wired is definitely the recommended option. Okay, if you can wire your computer up to your home network or your router that's going out to the internet provider, I would definitely recommend doing that. Wire, and don't do the Wi-Fi if you can help it. Okay, I know some people have their computers across the room for wherever the router is, or across the house, or maybe out in the garage or somewhere where it's really difficult to get a wire. But you know, it'll definitely it'll give you payoff benefits in spades. I mean, honestly. So if you can work out getting a cable to your router to your gaming PC, you're definitely going to benefit from that. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about Wi-Fi, just so you can understand what I'm saying. So with wired, you have two-way communications all the time. There's never any kind of collisions as far as data being sent. There's not any kind of issues with that at all. With Wi-Fi, that's not always the case. So standard Wi-Fi uses 2.4 gigahertz, okay? And the reason being is that's unregulated space. So that's just one issue with Wi-Fi, okay? One issue. There's a whole bunch, okay? So, but I'm going to get to them. So the 2.4 gigahertz is unregulated space, at least here in the United States. I know there's probably going to be people all over the planet watching this video. But wireless mice, this is going to use 2.4 gigahertz. If you actually have a home phone that's using wireless back to its base, that's going to be on 2.4 gigahertz. But there's Bluetooth, it's 2.4 gigahertz. The list goes on, people. There's, as I understand, even your microwave, if you have a microwave oven in your house, when it emits radiation at 2.4 gigahertz. So that's also going to have an impact. Okay. Another thing about Wi-Fi is it's generally half duplex. Okay. So duplex, when you say duplex, du means two, right? I guess in Latin or whatever. So there's like, basically it's two-way communication. So half duplex means that only one thing is talking at a time. So everything's got a beacon. So everything's got a chirp that's in range of your device when it's on Wi-Fi. So everything's going to have to take a turn, and only one thing can speak at a time. Now, granted, everything is happening so fast that you don't always recognize that there's latency, but at the most inopportune times, you're going to see it. You know, I mean, it could be you might be in a shooting match with somebody online, and you know, you'll shoot them, and then you'll get killed, right? They'll end up shooting you or killing you, killing your character. And even though you feel like you shot them first, that just really could be because the server saw their shot before it saw your shot. And so they killed you, you didn't kill them. You know, I mean, it could be just that simple. And so that's basically what lag and latency is, by the way. What other issues are there with 2.4 gigahertz? Okay, if you're going to go Wi-Fi, you could probably try doing a 5 gigahertz for if that's an option for you, just for a cleaner signal. The only downside of that is the range isn't as good as it is with 2.4. 2.4 can go further. 5 gigahertz not quite as far, but it's a cleaner signal. But of course, if you go wired, you can go up to 300 feet. 300 feet of cable, and you're good. And Cat 5 cable or Cat 6. But anyway, so that's basically what lag or latency is. So latency is basically how long it takes when, like, if you click something versus when you actually see the response. If you're playing Guitar Hero, you're probably really familiar with that. I think you actually have to adjust for latency when you're playing Guitar Hero. It's a synchronization thing. And lag, sometimes that could be when things are jumping backwards, like, things aren't registering as fast as they are on your side. So you might be getting some feedback from the server that's pushing your actions backwards or something like that. I mean, just weird stuff can happen with lag. Also, I did put on here, I wanted to talk about WAN versus LAN. Okay, and LAN is the acronym means local area network. WAN means wide area network. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because if you're hooked up to a router and not directly to the router that's going out to your internet service provider. So if you have like a home, like Linksys router or Netgear or something like that in your house, you're going to be on a private network, okay? That's going to be your LAN. So if you actually go into your computer and you look up your IP address, if you're on Windows, that's ipconfig/all at the command line, if you know how to get to that. You'll see your gateway. If it's like a 192.168.1.1, that's your router. And the reason why I'm pointing this out is because if you're ever curious about what your latency is to your internet service provider, which I definitely highly recommend you keep an eye on, you want to know what your WAN gateway is, not your LAN gateway. So if you have 192.168.1.1 or 2.1, something like that, then that is your LAN gateway. Okay, your router, your Netgear is going to have a WAN gateway too, so that's going to be your internet service provider, and that's going to be the IP address that you're going to want to ping. You can ping that directly from your computer, and generally you want your pings to be less than 10 milliseconds. Okay, 20 is not bad, but it's not great. You want to be around 10 milliseconds or better. Okay, generally you want to see like 2 or 4 milliseconds, quite honestly. So I'm being generous, just saying 10. It's because when it's a direct connection, but there's a lot of things that can impact that. So one, if you're on Wi-Fi, I mean, if you got to wait for that beacon to come around, that can be an issue. If you got like one of these, if there's a lot of processing going on your router, it could be because of configuration issues on your router. Maybe it's got too much functionality built in and it can't really handle all of it. Like if you're doing VPNs and that kind of thing, your latency, network latency, might be a little worse. Okay, but generally, if you're going to be gaming, you want to have at least a 10 millisecond or lower ping to your gateway if you're going to be a good gamer. So, but anyway, it's not an issue for everybody, but if it is, I mean, it's just to kind of give you an idea of how to troubleshoot that. But anyway, that's really all I got for now. So I'm kind of hoping you guys feel like this was a worthwhile video. If so, give me a like. You can give me some comments, feedback, down below. Share the video with your friends, in your groups, wherever you're at, socially. And yeah, subscribe and ring that bell, man. I appreciate it very much. Y'all take care, and look for me on Twitch, twitch.tv/price_is_wrong. I'd love to see y'all on there. Just go on there and give me a follow as well. I'd appreciate that. Y'all take care. Have a good one.
The price is wrong, bitch.